Okay, so again, the assessment revolves around a short case study. Donald B. Chocolate Product Maker, and I have uploaded 2 Abyss World reports. Please use them, and well, you may want to use at least one of them, depending on the industry that you want to analyze. You can also look at. You can also. I would imagine that you may need to look at. You may also need to look at different websites or research or sources of information. Okay. Now, the problem with this fictitious company, especially it is a short scenario, is it is lacking of information. I understand that. But the good thing about that is you have the liberty to put in your own interpretation based on the short scenario. Okay, so they have 2 stores in Melbourne. They make chocolate products. Okay, and these are the products that they make. So based on that, you can think about what are the options for them to expand the business. Okay, and again, my recommendation is to focus on the Australian consumer, Australian markets. Okay, not B2B markets, because B2B market may be a little more challenging for us in terms of collecting the data. Okay, now these are the tasks: biobehavior, microenvironment, competition. Okay, competitor analysis, and macro environment. So pretty much about the environmental analysis. Okay. And I also have a brief discussion before in terms of the my advice to attack the assessment. Okay, I understand that we discussed this. We discussed the assessments in the first week or in the first webinar. But look, I'm taking this opportunity because we're just 1 week away to submit. The assessment is due next Friday, so let's have a look at it, okay? So these are the points that I'd like to bring to you. Formal academic style, and if you believe that you have some opportunities to develop further in terms of academic writing style, please contact the academic writing team. You'll find the name Caroline Spans in the library website, and send an email. She's committed to us to respond within 2 business days, which is good, quite good. She doesn't work on Mondays, by the way, and if you send it today or Monday, she will get back to you on Wednesday. So pretty good, okay? And don't email her on Wednesday, because the due date is on Friday. You'll get the feedback on Friday, probably late afternoon, all right? So make sure that you manage that time, okay? The next one is critical writing, okay? Now, what is critical writing? Look, this is my suggestion in terms of critical writing. Don't only offer the facts. You got the facts. You do some research, either Abyss World Report or whatever it is, okay, or any websites that you research, right? You'll get the facts. Definitely you get some facts, either economic growth, GDP, or whatever it is. Please ensure that you show your interpretation based on the facts. You build on the facts to write your interpretation. Okay, so you may research a number of facts to write one single interpretation, because one fact may not be enough for us to write the conclusion of it. Okay, so let's say we research fact number 1, fact number 2, or fact number 3, for instance, and after that we offer our interpretation, or in other words, our interpretation revolves around what they mean. What do they mean to the business? What is that? Okay, what is that for me? In quote unquote. What does it imply to us? What is the implication to us? Okay, so that's basically the ones I'd like to recommend us to do. Okay, now let's look at the tasks that we need to address. Okay, so the tasks are basically about the environmental analysis. Okay, so in terms of formal academic writing style, you may want to include the title page and table of content. Okay, do you have to write the executive summary? No. Look, guys, for this assessment, you don't have to write the executive summary. Okay, For the next assessment, yes, please write the executive summary. Okay, not required. Okay, so you don't need to write that. Okay, but I do recommend you to write the introduction. Okay, I do recommend you to write the introduction, although the task does not ask you to write an introduction. The introduction here helps us to understand the context, helps you to declare this is the context. Okay, so what do we need to write in the introduction? Well, you can introduce the company again, Donald B, right? A brief summary on the short scenario, and you can also here you can also introduce your own thinking in terms of direction of the company. Okay, these are the possible directions, and in this analysis, you're going to write along direction A, for instance. Okay, and you also briefly introduce the market, right? The chocolate product market in Australia, chocolate product market in Australia. Okay, just briefly, and how will you get the information? You can go back to the ABIS work report. Okay, briefly about the introduction, right? Just very quite brief. Okay, if you write more than one page of introduction, then you need. I think it is a bit too much, a bit too many. All right, so yeah, that's roughly that is a rough guide, I guess, in terms of writing the introduction. Okay. Now, the next thing that we need to write is the environmental analysis. Again, in terms of writing, formal writing, use the headings. Let me just write here. Headings, title page, table of content, okay? Headings, subheadings. Okay, now, what's the next thing that we need to do? All right, so next thing is environmental analysis. Okay, environmental analysis, which is basically the main point in your analysis here. Right, that's our heading. You may want to use let's say number 1 and number 2, your environmental analysis, and then 2A is your, let's say, 2A is your micro environmental actors. Okay, now if you have used this term, there are 6 actors in here, right? The company, the supplier, the marketing intermediaries, competitors, and customers, right? So the 3 major ones that you want to look at include the company. All right, here you have the liberty to explain about the possible resources that they have. Okay, the customers and competitors deserve your detailed analysis. Okay, now customers. I just jump to the customers here. Okay, so here you need to look at the you need to use the consumer behavior model that we discussed, consumer behavioral concepts that we discussed in the previous module. Okay, in particular, you need to look at the factors affecting consumer decision making. Okay, look, there are a lot of factors that we discussed in the previous module. I would rather you analyze 2-3 factors maximum. Okay, look, when I say factors, please please be specific. Not only social, but look at the other factors such as the family, for instance, or key opinion leaders if they are relevant to you. In terms of personal, you can also look at the economic situation, for instance. Okay, in terms of psychological factor, you can look at specific factors such as motive, for instance. Okay, you can go back to the Maslow's theory. Okay, so 2-3 factors. All right. I would rather you analyze 2-3 factors max, but you analyze them comprehensively rather than you analyze everything, but they are, skin deep. Okay. And please also look at their needs and preferences, the customer's needs and preferences in the industry that you analyze. Okay. Then competitors. We discussed several models last time in module 1 discussion. Okay, if you recall, we discussed about who. Right here, you can also look at direct competitor, indirect competitor, and product substitutes. Okay, product substitutes. Okay, and the next one is what they offer. What do they offer? Okay, here you look at their marketing mix variables. Right, you look at their marketing mix variables of 3 major competitors. Right, maximum 3 major competitors. I think the assessment requires us to look at 2. Okay. And the next one is, if you still have the energy, you can look at the strength weaknesses analysis of these major competitors, right? Using the model that we discussed in module 1, okay? And the company, the marketing organization. Okay? Here you talk about what do they have, pretty much about the resources that you will put in based on your interpretation of the case study. Okay, the others like public, suppliers, okay, marketing intermediaries. Please look at them briefly. Okay, you can focus on the both 3. And because the marketing intermediaries, we are going to have that these analysis later on in your marketing strategy analysis. Okay, so that's basically micro environmental actors, and the next one is your macro environmental forces. Okay. You can use the 6 variables that we discussed, like demographic, political and social, economic, technological, natural, and so on and so forth. You can also use PAST for PAST model, or STEEP, or STEP, or PASTEL. They are the same thing. Will you be marked down because of that? No, because they are the same thing. All right. The ones that I would like you to look to focus on is basically revolves around impacts. Okay, and if you can also analyze the changes, okay, within that specific factor, such as legislation change or economic trend, that will be fantastic. Okay, in doing so, show the data, facts, or references. Okay, and they are the main ones. And in terms of impact, remember we discussed about the impact will only be positive only or negative only. Okay, and the impact in terms of dimensions or areas of impact would only be in consumption, that revolves around the revenue of the industry or the business, and or the costs, okay, that revolves around the profitability of the industry. Okay, then a short summary or conclusion about these things. Right, now make sure when you do that summary, you include the key findings. Okay, now look, I often find people write a summary that is not connected to what we have analyzed. Okay, remember the purpose of the assessment is actually mainly about environmental analysis. Therefore, your key findings should include the key point, the highlights of the environmental analysis. Okay, so they're the ones basically that I'd like to highlight. Okay, in terms of the assessment advice. Okay, any questions, guys, so far? All good? Yeah. Okay. So if you don't have any questions, let's move on to the next one. The next thing that I'd like to discuss with you is basically about the marketing research briefly, and after that we are going to discuss the STP, segmentation, targeting, and positioning. And I have prepared a Kahoot game. If you have install that in your device, or if you use your computer, you can also Google type in your Kahoot, type in Kahoot, and I'm going to share to you the password, but that one is not going to be recorded. Okay. All right. Let's move on.
Eddie, can I please ask a quick question, Dan?
Yeah.
My interpretation of Donald B, I just want to make sure that it's not going to be marked down. My understanding was that he's producing chocolate at the moment. He wants to introduce and expand his product range into the products that is mentioned in the case, the case study.
Yep.
Is that completely incorrect? Do you want me to rewrite some of the things, assuming that he's already manufacturing those? Or?
No, that's fine. You can do that. You can rewrite. Well, that is the only information available at this stage. So you rewrite it. You can build on the case study based on your interpretation. This is the possible scenario of this company. Therefore, they should have this from resources perspective, for instance. Yeah. Do I answer your question? Have I answered your question then?
I think so. My understanding, my interpretation was that he's manufacturing only chocolate products. He wants to go into the glazed fruits, etc., etc., etc. So product expansion as well as expansion in footprint nationally and globally, which you said not to focus too much on.
Yep, that's one.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's
Thank
one.
you.
Yeah. Okay. So, let me try to bring my own. Right. Okay, let me just take you through briefly with the marketing research topic. Okay, and after that, we need to have, I think we need to continue again after about 5-10 minutes. Otherwise, we may be ejected by Zoom. Okay. All right. Look, this is the model that we've been. I believe people have been, seeing this model because since module 1 I've presented this model already, and this is again as a brief reminder, this is again the focus of assessment 1, this model. Okay, understanding these guys, researching these guys, getting the insight about these guys, about the micro and macro environmental forces. Okay. And the first thing I'd like to introduce to you is about the concept insights. Insight is actually the ones that we are aiming at when it comes to marketing research. And look, if you talk to 10 marketers, they may offer you 12 definitions of insights. Okay, but briefly, insight is actually related to a fresh understanding of the customers that lead us to action. Okay. In other words, if we have the information, but we can't action to it, it is classified. We can classify them. We can classify this information as nice to know. Yeah, it's good to know that, but we can't action it. We can't action. Okay. So now, why insights? The reason for that is because in business, we do need, especially in today's business landscape, we do need to have the information when it comes to making decisions. So we conduct marketing research not because we have the budget to do so, not because we have put in the budget, put in the dollars in our marketing plan to conduct research, but we need the information. We don't have the information at the moment, and we conduct research to reveal the insights. Okay. So that's basically about the insights that I just talked about. And now, as a business, we have 3 types of sources of information. The first one is the internal database that includes the financial report, customer feedback, and CRM. CRM is quite popular recently. A lot of companies apply what they call as the CRM, Customer Relationship Management Report. That is actually quite a good, a fantastic tool to understand the customers that leads us to the insights and open more opportunities for us. Okay. But in my personal observation, a lot of companies normally focus more on the software. They may have forgotten about the letter R, the relationship. Okay, so CRM should actually focus on getting the data about the consumers, right? So we can design our strategy better to build and maintain the relationship with the customers. The next source of information is the competitive marketing intelligence, which is basically helping us to understand our competitors. Okay, how do we get that? Well, we get that from the competitors. Okay, we get that from the competitor analysis. Remember, in your assessment one, I recommend you to analyze their their offering. Okay, because everything that they do, everything that they do will affect the effectiveness of our operation, the effectiveness of our offering. Okay, so we need to understand that. Okay, so that's the competitive marketing intelligence, and we can also analyze their annual reports or their announcements, for instance. Okay, or trade exhibition. Okay, for instance, in America, in late January, they always organize what they call as Consumer Electronics Show, and people normally talk to the large big brands such as Apple, Samsung, and so on and so forth, and they listen to what initiatives that they are trying to bring to the market for that year, basically. Okay. A few years ago, Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, received question from the stock analyst. Hey, you guys have been doing quite well, especially your iPhone has been doing quite well. Now you have your opposition from Asia, Samsung. They attacked you in two fronts. First, price. Second, larger screen. What would you do about it? Okay. Well, at that time, he didn't explicitly talk about it, but based on the gesture and so on and so forth, everybody at that time anticipated that they would launch a cheaper iPhone, and they did that with iPhone 5C. Okay, whether customers love that product or not, that is a different thing. All right, but the main point in here is understanding the competitors' action through analyzing their behavior, including the announcement, press releases, and so on and so forth. Okay. The third source of information that marketers can use is the marketing research. This is the one that we are going to discuss today. Okay, marketing research is quite expensive. Therefore, before we conduct that, make sure that we have used the other sources of information before we spend the research dollar. A number of decisions that we can make, that we can support through research, including the segmentation decision, who the target market is, customer selection, okay, positioning, brand decision, and also the campaign decision. We can research those things as well. Okay, okay, now briefly we are going to discuss about the marketing research process. It's quite simple actually. We have 4 stages when it comes to marketing research process. We always start defining the problem. Well, in my career actually in marketing, this is probably where most of my time is spent when it comes to writing a research proposal. Okay, you may be laughing that, well, does it mean I don't understand the problem? We marketers don't understand the problem. Well, we have the instinct. Yeah, that may be the problem, but we have to substantiate it. We have to detail the problem so that we are going to have a more robust research outcome. Okay. Well, again, as a rule of thumb, if you put in generic research question in your research, you will get a generic research outcome that may be hard for you to action. Okay, so for instance, in Asia Pacific region, I observed that a lot of people say, well, the reason why this brand does not sell and the competitor's brand sell more is because the competitor's brand is tasty. Well, we can't action to it. Okay, we need something deeper than that. We need something more insightful than that. It is at skin deep level, right? At superficial level. Therefore, how do we get there? The key point is detailing the problem. In problem definition, we have to be able to detail it. Okay, and in terms of defining the problem, please make sure we can also differentiate between business problem and research problem. These two are 2 different things, right? So what is our research problem? Our research problem is we are not making our sales target. Well, that is not a research problem. That is a business problem, okay? So business problem is related to the business performance, simple, right? Like market share or sales, for instance. Okay, we are losing that. That is a business problem. Okay, so we need to be able to convert that into research problem. How do we get there? Before we jump into the research problem, okay, we ask ourselves, what would be the possible causes of this business problem? Okay, let's say our sales is declining. Okay, well, it could be our competitor launching new products, or it could be our customers, okay, leaving us. Okay, it could be our internal effort not good enough, right? Our distribution or customers or the outlets are leaving us, for instance. Okay, that leads us to the research problem. That helps us to the research problem. If it is about the competitor, then the possible research question may revolve around understanding our brand perception in the competition. Okay? How is our brand perceived by the customers in the competition, given that competitor just launched new product, for instance? Okay, or we can also research the product quality, perceived product quality. Okay? How is our product perceived by our customers, right? Given that our competitors just launched a new product. Okay, customers leaving us. Well, we can also research the customer satisfaction. Okay, how satisfied is our customer, for instance? Overall, how would they rate their satisfaction with our product or service, for instance? Right. So there are basically some examples in terms of research problem. Okay. Now, this research problem help us. This research problem helps us with the next step, which is basically about developing the research plan. Okay, the research plan basically is determined by the problem that we have that we want to solve. Okay. Now, in terms of research plan, we have several decisions that we need to make. The first one is the types of data that we want to collect. Okay, is that primary or secondary? Just between the two. I would recommend you to research the secondary. Okay, this will be the first thing that you need to research, the secondary data that helps us to detail our research problem. Okay. In saying that, the other benefit of the secondary data is it is available for us for free. A lot of them is available for free. So before we spend the research dollars to collect the primary data, make sure that we use our research we research our secondary data. Okay, that helps us to detail the problem. Okay, all right, guys. Can I suggest that we click we leave the meeting room now, and then we come back to the meeting room in the next few minutes before we are ejected by Zoom. Yeah, by clicking the same link. Yeah.
Yep, that's cool.
All right. Thanks a lot, Mike. Thanks.
I'll see you soon.
Thanks.